Hello, I'm Doug Smith, and welcome to another edition of It's the Economy. Today we have with us Ray Burbrick, who's the chairman of the Revenue Generation Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee within the Portsmouth Economic Development Committee. Welcome, Ray.
Good evening. Hi.
How did the RGSC get started, and what do you guys do?
The work that the Portsmouth Economic Development Committee does goes back many years. More recently, back in 2009, there were a couple of workshops that we did over at Portsmouth Abbey to review the SWOT analysis and look at some other things concerning the economy in Portsmouth. And there's a strategic planning subcommittee that looks at ways to generate revenue, but their time frame is sometimes greater than 10 years, 10, 15 years down the road. For any resident that's wants to observe what goes on at the town meetings and the budget meetings and whatnot, that there's a lot of cutting going on and a lot of demand for reducing taxes, but there didn't seem to be a lot of emphasis on raising revenue. And the town council a number of years ago put the Economic Development Committee together to be economic advisors to the town council. Within the Economic Development Committee, we have the ability to create subcommittees to fulfill needs. And one of the needs that we saw was there was no mechanism to generate revenue within a 5-year time frame. So that's the genesis and how the subcommittee got started.
So you're really looking at revenue generation opportunities within a shorter time frame, say 5 years or so.
Absolutely. Yeah. As one phrase that we like to use in the committee, it's low-hanging fruit. What is readily available to us in town that we could generate revenue from? And two very important provisos for our particular committee. One, we're going to do things that do not raise taxes, and with a heavy emphasis on coming up with ideas and developing ideas that do not cost the town any money or require funding from the town. The second thing is it's not about creating new fees as well, not necessarily for the town residents. Some of the ideas that have been generated said, let's start like a Sale Newport program that would be sponsored by the town. It would be a fee to the users. It wouldn't be a fee to the townspeople across the board.
Now, before we get into some of the specific ideas that your group has come up with, let me go back to this SWOT analysis and make sure everybody understands what it means. You want to explain it?
Briefly. The very detailed examination of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's standard throughout corporate
Of the town
America.
itself,
right?
Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
And all of that information is available on the website, the Portsmouth Economic Development Committee website. And each of the subcommittees has their own website as well. A lot of the surveys that you do in town, there's a great deal of information that's on the PED website to get an idea of the work that the PEDC is doing.
Okay, yeah, because people can see this, and I know the PEDC uses it every year when we give our annual report to the town council. But people should be aware too, I think, that we did that using a lot of different workshops and other venues to try to get public input. And was all kind of done by the strategic planning subcommittee, which looked out into the off years, the say 10-year time frame. Whereas you guys really now are focusing on, okay, what do we do in the meantime? In between trying to get our strategic act together, what do we do to try to gain some revenue for the town?
Exactly. One of the more, I think, informative reports on the PD website is the annual report that Rich Talipsky and Gary and you and Bob and all of the folks on the committee put together. Arguably one of the most important slides is what we call the gap slide, and that was the main motivation for starting the subcommittee. The gap in short terms is that we anticipate revenues from outside, like federal and state revenues, not to increase. There was a period of time, a number of years, when there were small increases on an annual basis. As we all know, that's not the case anymore. In fact, worst case scenario is there's a decrease. There's a decrease in revenues. There's certainly a great deal of pressure on town leaders to reduce taxes, so if they do so, that means reduced revenues. And yet costs are still going up. There's just the general inflation rate. So if there's no new revenue coming in town and costs are going up, there's the gap. So we're in the process of putting some numbers on the gap. As a quick example, the town budget for last year was about $55.5 million. And the budget increase from budget year 29-10 to 2010-11 was just under 2%. Well, 2% of $55 million is $1.5 million. So one of the goals for the Revenue Generation Subcommittee would be to identify a number of ideas, a number of actionable steps that we can put into motion to put a dent in, if not come up with the $1.5 million.
Sure. So really, the gap is kind of the driver here, the gap between how much money we expect to get and what our costs are in the town. And as you say, that's got to be some kind of driver for economic development. The members of your subcommittee, are they all PEDC members, or do you also have a few from?
There's a few PEDC members, but we've recruited a number of folks who are not on the PEDC. The meetings are all in accordance with the open meeting laws. Their agendas are published ahead of time and posted on the state website, and we advertise in Patch, we advertise on our website, we even have advertised through the Facebook pages that we've put together as a means to get the word out to everybody that these are open meetings. The more folks that come in and participate, the better the process will be.
I just wonder if you could discuss a couple of the ideas that have come out of your meetings so far.
Some of the ideas range from very large ideas in terms of not strategic planning 10 years, but there's a bunch of land in town along both the East and West Main corridors that are already zoned commercial. And one thing to do would be to get a very robust marketing plan in order to attract business owners and or developers to come in and just put in businesses along the land that's already zoned for commercial. So conceivably within 5 years someone could come in and do that. One example was the subway that went in over in West Main, right down the street from Cindy's. That took a year to put in. So I'm not suggesting more franchises go in, but we're looking for the kinds of businesses that would complement what we want Portsmouth to be, like the Portsmouth Shop or Mar Getziger's or Travers Plumbing or some of those kinds of businesses that could fill a need, find a niche, slide right into town, and then instead of having empty land, now we have a business owner who's helping add some revenue to the town.
That sounds almost like a job description of the Portsmouth Business Development Manager.
Funny you should mention that.
I just wondered how he relates to your committee, or your subcommittee.
Well, Bill's an at-large member of the PEDC as well, and he's attended a few of the Revenue Generation subcommittee meetings. But we started off initially, got 70 ideas. We boiled the 73 down to the next group of 43, and then further down we have 17 main ideas we're looking at right now. A number of those ideas, we're going to need an action person that's going to have to take the lead to plan, coordinate, communicate, do some potential marketing plans, be a liaison with the town planner, with the planning board, the zoning board, and the town council. That's a lot of work. And I envision the director of business development for the town as being the principal person that's going to take the ideas that we generate and put them into action. That's easier said than done, but the concept now is our committee is going to identify some ideas, put as much detail into it as necessary, hand it over to the town council, who they have the opportunity to deal with it as they see fit, but ideally speaking, they would take these ideas and say, these are really good. These will generate revenue. They don't cost us any money. They're not raising taxes, and we need a person to put these into motion. And who's that going to be?
See, it also sounds like a lot of this stuff may be beyond what volunteers can do, because I think it's important that everybody understands that the people on the PEDC and your subcommittee are all volunteers.
Absolutely.
And have other things to do with their lives. But I can see a potential down the road, certainly for new ideas to come up. Are you guys amenable to people emailing you or writing to you or coming to your meetings, I guess, as you said, and,
Absolutely.
and having an input?
There's any way that anybody wants to send an idea. There's a number of ways to do it. They can simply, you have a business in town, they can come by the office and we can talk one-on-one. They can call me at the office. There's the PDC website, which has a place to input the information there. There's the Promote Portsmouth Facebook page. There's a patch. In fact, one of the Springboard media events that we had was back last February, when the PDC had an open workshop with the town council, and each of the subcommittee members had a chance to speak a few minutes about their particular committee, and that was actually the very first time that the Revenue Generation Subcommittee had a chance to announce what they were going to do publicly.
You know, it seems like one of the things that seems to be a phenomenon, more or less, in time recently, is we've seen a couple organizations stand up trying to get people to be more interested in their local community. The Portsmouth Pride organization, for example, that I know John McDade does a lot of work with. Ideas about promoting Portsmouth. All of these things seem to be the kinds of things that the Revenue Generation Subcommittee would support, but also kind of want to be a part of. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. There's some other efforts that the Economic Development Committee are looking at right now. Part of it is updating the economic development section of the Town Comprehensive Community Plan. Along with that, John and Bob, again, continue to do terrific work with the strategic planning information. That's a dynamic document. And the Revenue Generation Subcommittee is a part of that. Again, as we just said earlier, our committee is focused on finding short-term revenue within 5 years. Part of making the town more attractive is promoting Portsmouth, promoting the local businesses, all of them that are already in town, working with the Portsmouth Business Association to get more people to patronize the local businesses. That makes the town a little bit more vibrant. It won't necessarily solve the financial problems overnight, but it does provide a good base and a lot of synergy that other business owners say, hey, I want to be a part of that, and they start moving their businesses into town.
Sure, maybe we can actually start getting people to come to Portsmouth as a destination rather than just passing through on the way to Newport.
That would be a nice benefit.
Ray, thanks very much. I hope to have the Portsmouth Business Association on at some future session here. But we've had Ray Burbrick, the chairman of the Revenue Generation Subcommittee of the PDC, with us tonight, discussing what his subcommittee does, and I think it's very interesting, and I support you guys all the way. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.